Hey friends, my name is Dale and I'm one of the pastors at the GLR campus. Do you have a strong-willed child? I'm just going to come right out and ask you. We raised a strong-willed child. The reason I ask is we are starting a new series called Roots. And we're just going to be talking about the roots of our life and where they come from. And I'm going to be talking today about willful disobedience. And so, man, when I think about willful disobedience, man, I just have flashbacks of raising our son in that regards of just a strong-willed child. I've heard it say in parenting about that the challenge and the goal of parenting is that we are to mold their spirit without, we're to mold their will without breaking their spirit. And that is a challenge because their will is one thing, but yet their spirit is that we don't want to break that spirit. And so that is a challenge. So when I think about, raising a child and how my son, that strong-willed child, he actually now has a son. And so I'm watching him just be so gentle and just loving on, his son. And it's like, oh my gosh, I didn't think we would ever see him have a child like that. He went through a really challenging time in his life. For years and years and years. And to see him now be a husband and being so gentle towards his wife and compassionate. And now his son, it's like, wow, didn't think that would happen. But, in a child is that there is this innate thing is that it's always about mine. Proverbs 14:12 puts it this way, that there is a way that seems right to a man, but in the end, it leads to death. It's always about my way. Now, it seems like, in a child, it seems that's so childish. But yet in our own life, it's like we want our own way. And so it says, oh, I'm not childish. But what is willful disobedience? Whenever it is that we know the right that we should be doing, or we know that we shouldn't do that, and then we blatantly go against it. I was having lunch with another father the other day, and he has a 16-year-old son, and he was just sharing with me about the challenges of his son and what he was going through, and it just got really bad, and just the behaviors, and he got to a point where it was like, man, son, if you do this, man, you're gonna have to do it somewhere else. And the son actually left for a few weeks, and then the son called back and said, hey, can I come home? And the father was like, yeah, you can come home. He says, but we're gonna go over about 4 things, that these are the rules of the house. And he said, man, Dale, he said, it wasn't just, just the next day or just a couple of days. And my son showed up, broke one of these rules. And it was like, man, he knew it. It's like, what is going on? And we were trying to process. And it's like, man, is there something deeper? What is going on? And just different realms of emotional wellness and things, or just, brain injury and looking at different stuff. And it's like, where does this come from? So when we look at the root of willful disobedience, I just go all the way back to Adam and Eve, and you look at that, is at that moment, and what did God say? Don't eat of that tree. And then what happens? Adam and Eve come around, and it's like they do it. They knew that they weren't supposed to do that, but they willfully broke it. They were adults at that point. They weren't immature. They weren't young in that regards. At that moment, it's like they had a choice on what to do. There's a story about King Saul in the prophet Samuel. And basically it was this: Samuel came in and said, Saul, God says that you're to demolish this army. Is the Amalekites, don't take any of the herds, of the cattle, or the sheep, don't take any prisoners, just annihilate them all. Saul goes out, he takes captive the king, then his men take the best of the sheep and the cattle and the herds and demolish everything else but that, and then they go and they hide it. And Samuel finds out about that, and it's revealed to him. And Samuel comes to Saul and basically exposes him, says, what's that I hear? Do I hear the bleating of a sheep? And he says, why did you not do what God said? And it says in 1 Samuel 15:22 and 23, it says, does the Lord delight in burnt offerings and sacrifices as much as in obeying the Lord? It says, to obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams. For rebellion is like the sin of divination, and arrogance like the evil of idolatry. You see, Saul said, hey, well, we took these, the sheep, and we took these, the lamb, and we took these, the goats, and we took all this because we were going to sacrifice them to God. We wanted to worship him. And Saul, he said, hey, obedience is better than sacrifice. In other words, do what God said. And so it is just something for us. We don't like to obey. That is just our nature. And we are totally having to be transformed as from our carnal, sinful nature into the Spirit of Christ and of that. And I read this actually this morning. It says that there is in all of us an inclination to resent being told what to do. Do you like being told what to do? Hey, in all of us, it's like, oh, don't tell me what to do. It says, but those in positions of authority and of power are all the more reluctant to acknowledge anyone else's superior authority. You know, that is just something, even as we elevate in authority, it's kind of like, no, I'm the one who calls the shots. You know, whether it's in our home or it's like, now I'm married, I call the shots. You know, or on the job, it's like, I'm the owner. And so how we get up, it's like, how are we at submitting to even discipline or authority? Do we have authority above us? And so that is the challenge, is that we think that, hey, I'm not disobedient. We may be. You know, the Psalms, it says, search me, O Lord, and see if there be any wicked way in me. I pray that we can do that today. Let me leave you with this verse. Hebrews 12:11 says, no discipline is enjoyable while it is happening. It is painful, but afterward there will be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way. Man, I love that. Man, there'll be a peaceful harvest of right living for those who are trained in this way. What is this way? It is whenever we are disciplined and we yield to that, whenever we follow that. And so it's not about doing things wrong, but it's when we willfully rebel against what is right. We're going to make mistakes, but rebellion is something that we should not follow. So I just pray that, man, you might have a humble, yielding heart to the things of God and not have a disobedient spirit, but that you would have a meek and mild. And Jesus himself said, I am meek, I'm meek and lowly. And so I pray that we can have that type of spirit in all of our lives as we go into, continue into this year, and that God will just bless your life. All right. Pray that God blesses you. May peace go with you, and we will see you next time. God bless.